뭐 그것도 내가
When the first batch of episodes of Frieren came out, I was a certified Frieren file, a real Himmelhead. This shit was my ride or die. I was bouncing on it, doing tricks on it, etc, etc. Like, what's not to love about a tranquil little story about a seemingly apathetic elf coming to the end of a grand 10-year adventure and then becoming Andy Bernard?
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them.
We love The Office. The twist here is that elves live a long time, so there's quite a lot of chances to make new good old days and reflect on old ones and discovering how much those good old days have really changed her over time and learning to appreciate time and to not take any moment for granted in time and blah 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 blah. All that boring snooze fest stuff that's right up my alley. Though one concern did creep up at the back of my mind. Where do you go? I spewed out all of that stuff just now because Frieren manages to touch on all of that mono aware type shit in his first batch of episodes, and I love it because of that. But at the same time, this is a 2-core, 28 episode show, and it already feels like we're ridden into a corner and all the cards have been laid out. I really hope not, but as the cast settled in and the episode count went up, and we creeped into the first prolonged arc of the series, I was like, damn it, dude. Damn me and my genius intuition, not again. Like, for a story all about time and change, there seems to be very little that actually changes from episode to episode. Frieren will mention how short 10 years is, and the other characters will be like, what? No wait, come on, that's like a lot of years, man. Fern will go totally beast mode until she's reminded that people really do care about her. There'll be a flashback where Himmel is being a bit of a goober and suddenly gets possessed and starts prophesizing whatever's happening in the present so Frieren can get all sentimental about it. Stark will be pathetic. Close scene. What was the point of that? I'm just joshing around, just yanking your chain a bit. Most episodes can't be reduced to just like the sitcom-y bits, and there really are some standout moments here, but I do think Frieren is more cyclical than it is linear. It always looks like something slightly profound is being revealed to the cast, but it's the same bittersweet gaze as the last episode, and the one before that, and there's so little effect internally and externally that most of the traveling episodes, barring characters entering and leaving the crew, can be rearranged without anyone really noticing. It almost feels episodic. Now, I have nothing against that. I like myself some Mushishi, or SpongeBob, but it feels disappointing for a story originally about time to feel so static. But I get it. I think the character dynamics and the structure of these stories are repeated so much because they are, at a base level, enjoyable. What can I say? I enjoy myself a bit of a bittersweet gaze every once in a while. And the characters, all of them are so chill. They're all so nonchalant. They don't scream every 5 seconds, I guess. It's different from modern anime. But this also seriously dampens the potential of the show, and it's just not sustainable for how long it is. So many characters in this show operate on the same really well developed, but narrow range of expression and worldview. It makes them all very likable, sure, but also kinda dull, because it never feels like the show is trying to challenge itself, and every interaction is just,
yo, bro, you can't park here. Seriously, you gotta skedaddle. You want me to call? I didn't realize you were chill like that.
you should know. Everyone is chill like that. Everyone has been chill like that. Yamada found a happy place in terms of story and character writing, and they just hit that note over and over. It's a nice note, but I can only listen to it for so long. And honestly, I think Yamada agrees. That's why we occasionally break out from this episodic structure. We have 2 dedicated and more visibly linear arcs in the show, in the Demon arc and the Chunin. It's literally just the Chunin exams. I'll say right off the bat, I don't think doing this really solved much. There's objective plot movement in these arcs, sure, and side characters are brought in that sometimes expand on the range of the show, but we end these arcs and I'm once again left feeling like, well, that was kind of fun. But what was the point? I'm fine with Frieren getting her Dragon Ball solo leveling, his power was over 9,000 moment, like, that's okay, and the exams are fine as well. It's all very shonen coded, but it's fine. Good, even. It's solidly written shonen. But what are we doing here, guys? I was promised fucking chicken noodle soup, but instead I got a Big Mac. That sounds mean, so maybe like a Five Guys burger, I don't know. The point is, this stuff has really tenuous ties to what I came to Frieren for, and it's really jarring, like 2 stories in a trench coat desperately trying to look like a fully formed idea. Honestly, this whole thing feels like a great one-shot that spiraled way past its original concept, and it's just lost in the sauce now. And the thing is, it literally was. I think that the root of my issues is just at the beginning that I love so much also sets expectations for the series thematically that never gets followed up on. And you know what? I can see why Yamada would be hesitant to do anything with the characters. But there is still one part of Frieren that Look, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Frieren's world isn't the most exciting in fiction. I mean, in the first place, characters rarely even mention much about the environments that they're in. What world building does exist rarely strays far from what you would expect from generic genre markers. Though my biggest gripe is how fragmented everything is because of the lack of detail. Rather than the characters stepping through the world, it's like the world is built around wherever the characters need to be. This is especially bad in the past with how short-lived every flashback is. It's all just so lean, but what good is a cut of steak without some fat? This extends to trying to ground the characters as, full characters, each with their own history and experiences. When all we see of Himmel is specific flashbacks completely disconnected from each other, it feels like his only purpose is to give a wise word or two to Frieren and look hot. Maybe that sounds like a really esoteric complaint, and I get it, not every story needs to go all J.R.R. Tolkien and be super intricate about the minutiae of the world. But in a story about the passage of time and the appreciation of the small moments in life, and when the material already feels so strained, it's like a missed opportunity to not write about it. Now, if you're not just listening in the background, you'll have noticed that I've been using manga pages to show off the world. And that's because it's a bit different in the anime. Like, I'm not just crazy, the anime actually agrees that there is room to improve here. If I've sounded too harsh on Frieren so far, let me make it clear. I like the show, I do. But a big reason for that is because of this adaptation. So we can take this whole world building thing as an example. Saito, Mr. Bocchi himself, was the director on Frieren, but Frieren and Bocchi's productions overlapped each other. So even though he's a pretty active director, he didn't have much time to set the foundations of the adaptation. But since the power of friendship is real in the anime industry at least, he called on his acquaintance Seiko Yoshioka as concept artist to create the visual feel of his vision to communicate in his stead. While the manga can feel sterile with its paneling and presentation, Yoshioka breathes life into the story with an aesthetic that's somewhere between tranquil and melancholic. The important point here is that she was even told to go beyond the pages, to explore the nooks and crannies of the setting that the source material just doesn't pay attention to. This really comes through in the representation of faith that we see throughout Frieren. Why do dwarves like putting balls on gravestones? No idea. Cool detail though. Even cooler that it changes over time, and the background art is just as impressive. Sawako Takagi and co at Studio Y have painted some incredibly lush and time-conscious backgrounds for the show. This is the type of stuff that cements viewers in an immersive sense of place and time. I wish we could have seen more of this, but the team was told that they weren't allowed to tinker with the script, and so they couldn't really tie these details into the world of Frieren properly, and all this incredible effort can't shine as much as it otherwise would. And it's a shame. Saito's resourcefulness and creativeness in Bocchi instantly made him one of the most exciting directors around. But here, one side of that, the creativeness, is being stifled by this decision. Luckily, the resourcefulness more than makes up for that, especially in a 28 episode run right off the heels of another production. It is what some would call totally cray-cray that Frieren looks as good as it does given how short the production process was. And to be fair, compared to something like Bocchi's, Frieren is much more reserved and calculated. Not to say that they skimped on the animation, because they'll spend time carefully animating the fabrics of ferns sitting on a stool, but Frieren is inherently a fairly subdued story, so there is room to be smart and rely more on aesthetic rather than raw horsepower. And for the parts that aren't subdued, you can thank animation producer Yuichiro Fukushi. He was responsible for gathering animation talent, especially for the action in the series. Saito himself admits that action just isn't his forte, but he knows Fukushi is a really celebrated and well-connected producer that has handled managing explosive shows before, with, a bit of success. We actually also have another producer on the show, Takashi Nakame, that has connections with the theatrical side of anime. Which is to say, this adaptation was not scrambling for talent. By having access to this really large pool of qualified animators, they, unlike most modern productions, had the privilege of being able to pick and choose the best fits for the show, which led to a lot less corrections having to be made, speeding up the whole process. It's this type of team synergy that makes Frieren such a consistently well-produced show, and takes it from the one note of the manga and turns it into a melody. A melody without lyrics, sure, but still better than that shitty Yoazuki song. Now, I've been dancing around it, but another synergistic and probably my favorite aspect of this adaptation is the colors, designed by Haruo Ono. Rarely in anime do you see colors that just work together so flawlessly, even considering the anime hair colors, a common death sentence for crafting truly coherent aesthetics. Add some simple but well executed composition work, and we're left with just the most pleasant viewing experience you could ask for. But the moment I locked in, when I knew I could forgive the source material no matter how bad it derailed, was when I saw this blue for the first time.